Hey there, so today we have another beer talk, and this is sort of a beer science episode, and this is going to be about hop creep. So hop creep is a really interesting subject that has come up a lot more in popularity because of the prevalence of dry hopping and New England style IPA. So this is going to be a little bit more of a beginner episode, and there's definitely other resources if you want to get a little bit more intermediate and advanced on this subject. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the brewing process and then how hop creep plays into that. So what is hop creep? So first off, you have to understand enzymes. So there are enzymes within your malted barley that help cut up those long chain sugars that are within the barley so that the yeast can eat them up. So when we mash a beer, putting beer at about 155 degrees and put in the grain, you're activating certain enzymes that end up eating up some of those long sugars, breaking them up so that yeast can later eat them up when we pitch in the yeast. So that simple, brewing process, and we pitch in the yeast, and the yeast is able to eat up some of those cut up sugars, but it's also going to leave some of those long chain dextrins and long chain sugars that the yeast is unable to eat up. So you still have sugar left in your beer. Almost all your beer is going to have some amount of residual sugar and long chain sugars that are left up because the yeast didn't eat through them. Well, this is really interesting because we are doing a lot of New England style IPAs and we're dry hopping. And to understand dry hopping, I really like calling it more like cold hopping. There's nothing really dry about it, but the fact is that you're throwing in the hops when the beer is pretty much either almost done with fermentation, usually when fermentation is completely done, but we're doing on IPAs, we are throwing them during some amount of active fermentation. So, but it is on the colder side when we're fermenting the beer around 65 degrees or something like that. So it's on the colder side versus the mash process, boil process, which are hot side processes. So we are adding in these hops, and guess what these hops have? They also have enzymes. So these enzymes are actually a little bit more active than your malt enzymes, and they are actually able to cut up some of those long chain sugars, those dextrins. And so what happens? Well, now you have another food source. And now you still have yeast in solution because you're still sitting the beer on yeast. Guess what happens? Fermentation. There you go. So with the initial process, we fermented the beer out. It was able to eat up reabsorbed diacetyl. It created CO2, created alcohol, and now we're starting up fermentation again. And guess what that happens? You're creating CO2 again. You're creating a little bit of alcohol. You're also drying out the beer because you're obviously eating through those sugars, so less of the residual sugar is left in the beer. But one of the most important things is that now you're restarting fermentation, and one of the byproducts of fermentation is diacetyl. Diacetyl is that buttery note that you get in dirty draft lines and very, very few commercial styles. It is actually the same chemical they use in movie theater popcorn. So if you just know what movie theater popcorn tastes like, then you definitely know what diacetyl tastes like. So that is definitely an issue because now with New England IPAs, we're able to turn over the beers a lot faster within a week and a half to a couple of weeks. So now you're turning over the beer very quickly. The yeast does not have time to sit in that solution and reabsorb that diacetyl, which is a normal part of fermentation. So now we're just quickly turning over the beer's starting up fermentation again, and boom, we have a little tweak higher in alcohol. Generally, that's not the issue, but there's going to be a little bit more carbonation. The big issue is that now you're producing a byproduct, diacetyl, and if you're not properly resting that beer and sitting it on the yeast enough to reabsorb that diacetyl, now you're releasing diacetyl New England IPAs out in the market. Personally, I have not run into this issue too much, but I've seen it a little bit, and this is going to be a very questionable issue and a huge headache for a lot of breweries. A lot of breweries end up having to sit on their beer for a lot longer than they like because the quicker you turn over the beer, the quicker they can turn it into money. But unfortunately, with this hop creep issue, we're restarting fermentation and having to rest the beer, diacetyl rest it, and taking more time so that the beer doesn't end up having diacetyl in the final product. So I hope this explains diacetyl and hop creep a little bit for you guys. I hope it explains what's going on, and a little headache a huge headache for many breweries that are producing mostly New England style IPAs because again, it's about the addition of hops on the cold side, and that is something that is very popular in New England IPA. So hope this was fun. Hop creep. Very fun subject. Until next time, guys. Cheers. Later.